My frustration is, as a regular everyday American citizen, I feel that I am more likely to be harmed by democratic policies such as open borders. Because
I'm for secure borders.
Okay, but in your state, something like 4,600 or so illegal migrants that had criminal records were re-released from jail. So when we're talking about harming Americans, when we're talking about children potentially being harmed, when we're looking into child trafficking, we have to acknowledge that illegal migration is the biggest funnel for child trafficking. So when we're worried about Epstein with a couple of people, and you guys turn a blind eye to tens of thousands of children being harmed by your policies,
just to say what President Biden has done, which is give people the opportunity to make these claims before they get to the border. The problem for the president is that Congress is not doing anything. I believe he has done more, certainly more than President Trump or even the previous president in getting done what he can without Congress acting.
What's up, family? I appreciate you for rocking with me because this is one of those clips where you can immediately tell something doesn't quite line up. And when you actually slow it down and listen, it raises some real questions. There's a moment going around where a young woman is having a conversation with Congressman Khanna. And what stands out isn't yelling or drama, it's how direct and clear the questions are. And here's the part that matters. This isn't about attacking anybody. This is about looking at what's being said and asking, does this actually make sense when you break it down? Because a lot of these political conversations sound good on the surface, but when you look a little closer, you start to notice gaps. You start to notice things that don't fully connect. And that's why this clip matters. It connects to bigger issues like border security, law enforcement, and how laws are actually applied in real life. Let's be honest here. Most people aren't looking for talking points. They're looking for consistency. They want to know that the rules make sense and that they're being applied fairly. So that's what we're going to do in this video. We're going to break this down, look at the different perspectives, and then I'll give my thoughts. Because once you hear this exchange, you understand why so many people are paying attention to it right now. Hit the like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and check this out.
As a regular everyday American citizen, I feel that I am more likely to be harmed by democratic policies such as open borders. Because in your state,
I'm for secure borders.
Okay, but in your state, something like 4,600 or so illegal migrants that had criminal records were re-released from jail. So when we're talking about harming Americans, when we're talking about children potentially being harmed, when we're looking into child trafficking, we have to acknowledge that illegal migration is the biggest funnel for child trafficking. So when we're worried about Epstein with a couple of people, and you guys turn a blind eye to tens of thousands of children being harmed by your policies, that's a problem.
We have been for a secure border, but here's what I want.
No one in California can say that they're for a secure border.
Well, that's a policy I've been pushing for. But let me say this. Instead of having ICE raids in places like Minneapolis killing Americans like Alex Preddy and Renee Good, and doing raids on undocumented folks here who may be paying taxes and having a restaurant, how about we have the focus on the border to stop the terrorists or to stop the gangs or to stop sex trafficking?
So if you're worried about sex trafficking, why is your focus on rich people who are committing significantly less sex trafficking crimes? Not saying that they're innocent, but your anger towards this seems very skewed and very hypocritical.
My anger towards them is because they feel like they're above the law, that they
and
use
so do
their
these migrants that get right back out of jail when you guys let them out.
Now, getting into what's actually being said, you hear the point about focusing on the border, stopping crime, stopping trafficking. And on the surface, that sounds like something everyone should agree on. Public safety is not a controversial goal. But here's where things don't add up. When those concerns are brought up, people naturally start looking at the policies and asking, do they match that goal? And this is where the issue becomes clear. There's a difference between what's said and what people feel is actually happening. And a lot of people have been pointing out that enforcement at the border has looked inconsistent over time. And that creates confusion because if the problem is serious, and most agree that it is, then the response needs to be clear and consistent. Now, to be fair, supporters of current policies will say this is a complicated issue. They'll point to humanitarian concerns, legal processes, and a reality that the system is under pressure. And that's a valid point of the conversation. But at the same time, the concern many people have is simple. Are the laws being enforced in a way that actually matches the goals being talked about?
I am not for,
they are above the law. They are at a tier that gets to walk free whenever they want.
I believe that if you've committed a violent crime or a terrible crime in this country, you should face deportation.
But you guys don't do it. You believe it, but you let these people go.
Obama had a record of having secured the border, and there were a lot of criminals who were deported. What I don't agree with is what ICE is doing, putting terror in communities. I mean, let me ask you this.
I feel comfortable with ICE around. I'm not a criminal, illegal immigrant, so I feel very comfortable. I'm not terrorized by them, and I'm from New York. Brooklyn, New York.
Okay. If there's an undocumented immigrant here, right, came across without their papers, and they opened a restaurant, and they've been
Why?
Here,
Why are they allowed to do that? Why are they taking that place away from someone else?
Right? Let's say they've been here 10 years, and they're paying taxes. Do you think ICE should go and try to deport them, or do you think that we should? So we just disagree there.
I think that if you're going to go after someone that was on Epstein's Island 10 years ago, then you should go after people that came here legally 10 years ago. I think it's disingenuous for you guys to be focused on one thing that's so much smaller than this really large issue.
Looking at someone who came here undocumented for the American dream. Now, my parents came here through the legal process. We should have a path to legalization and citizenship.
So should those people skip people like yourself?
It is so different than rich and powerful people who are rigging the system and feel like they're totally above the law. I mean, an undocumented person is much more vulnerable. They don't have access to politicians.
They're vulnerable because of your policies that make them vulnerable.
We got to pause here. You've been voted out by the majority.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, family. So at the end of the day, when you look at this, right, it's a valid part of the conversation when it comes to undocumented individuals. And the concern people have is simple. Are the laws being enforced? That matches the goals, like I said. Because when that connection isn't clear, people start asking questions, as you guys can see. And that's when you're seeing in this moment, it's not about emotion, it's about clarity. People want straight answers, and you can see she was digging for that and diving for that. And when they don't get them, that's when skepticism starts to grow. Now let's go a little deeper, because this is where the conversation becomes more important. One of the key points brought up is how laws are handled after someone has already entered the system. For example, when someone commits a crime and is already in custody, there's an expectation from many people that there should be coordination with federal authorities. In some places, that cooperation is limited, and supporters of these policies argue that it helps build trust in communities. That's their position. However, the concern on the other side is that it can lead to situations where enforcement feels incomplete or inconsistent. And this is where the debate comes important. It's not just about immigration, though. It's about whether laws applied the same way across the board. There's also a legal side to this that matters. Under U.S. law, entering a country unlawfully is defined as an offense, and repeated violations can carry more serious consequences. So the question becomes, how should that law be applied in practice? Now, I want you guys to check out a clip in regards of Obama, the former president. And I mention this because mentioning about how should the law be applied in practice, some people believe enforcement should be strict and consistent to maintain order. Others believe that there should be flexibility based on individual situations. That's the real debate. And then you have examples brought up about individuals who have been in the country for years, working or even running businesses. And supporters of allowing them to stay argue that they contributed and built a life. But the concern is that making exceptions, I should say. The concern is making exceptions after the fact may create more incentives for that same situation to continue. And this is where things connect to a bigger principle, which is fairness. People want to know that the system is consistent, because when it feels like the rules depend on the situation, trust in the system starts to break. And that's why conversations like this matter, because they highlight where people feel the gap, family.
People try to discourage you from voting. If you want to vote and you show up at your polling place, they can't stop you from voting. They can't stop you from voting. If people want to know how to vote, then you can go to iwillvote.com. The fact of the matter is that we give our power away all the time. You know, we tell ourselves, oh, it's hard, it's not going to matter, it's not going to count. And the powers that be, they're counting on us giving our power away.
Many of the millennials, dreamers, undocumented citizens, and I call them citizens because they contribute to this country, are fearful of voting. So if I vote, will immigration know where I live? Will they come for my family and deport us?
Not true.
Okay.
And the reason is, first of all, when you vote, you are a citizen yourself, and there is not a situation where the voting rolls somehow are transferred over and people start investigating, etc. The sanctity of the vote is strictly confidential in terms of who you voted for. If you have a family member who maybe is undocumented, then you have an even greater reason to vote.
So you guys heard that, and I want you guys to see the other side of that perspective.
As a legal immigrant, I hate the fact that Democrats have weaponized the great diversity of this country. I'm not here to say we don't need immigrants. I'm here to say that we don't need people in this country who are going to keep supporting the same thing that turned their countries to shit. When I decided to leave my country, that was one of the biggest reasons. I noticed the majority of people didn't see anything wrong with keeping voting for a party that promised them free money, free things, a little bit of food at the end of the month. They didn't see anything problematic with that. And that's when I was like, F that. I need to get the heck out of here. So as legal immigrants, believe me, we're the first ones to want closed borders because we don't want that kind of BS here. And this is what we're seeing, right? A bunch of immigrants who run away from their countries because it's so bad. I wonder why it's so bad. And they now come here to support the same ideology, asking for government assistance, and they're entitled. They really think that American tax money needs to go towards them. So when you hear legal immigrants don't support an open border, don't support illegal immigration, it's not because we're selfish. It's not because, oh, now it's not our turn, so F them. No, it's because we know what these type of people, when they're the majority in a country, we know what happens. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing it with our own eyes. There's nothing more frustrating to me than to think about all the sacrifices and everything I've done in my life to come here to America, to make America feel like home to me. I worked my butt off, and now to see this country transforming into the same thing I ran away from is, I don't know. I don't even know what word to say, but I hope you understand how frustrating that can be.
And when you step back and look at everything together, this conversation connects to a much bigger pattern happening across the country. People are paying attention to how policies impact real life, whether it's cost of living, safety, or overall opportunity. And we've seen a trend where people are moving from one state to another looking for better conditions. That's not new. But here's where the conversation gets important. A lot of people are asking whether the same policies that cause problems in one place are being supported again in another. And that's a fair question to ask because at the end of the day, policy decisions have real outcomes. Let's be honest here. People move for a reason. They're looking for something better. And naturally, they want to preserve what's working when they get there. That's not about politics at that point. That's about results. And that's really what this whole conversation comes down to. People want consistency. They want accountability, and they want policies that make sense, not just in theory, but in practice. So when you see clips like this, it's not just about the moment itself. It's about what it represents. It shows where people feel like things don't fully line up, and it opens the door for real discussion. So I want to hear from you. What do you think about the situation? Do you think the concerns being raised are valid, or do you see it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you got value from this video, hit the like button and share it with someone. Subscribe to the channel and turn on your post notifications so you don't miss the next one. Catch you next one, family. Peace.